Hey friends, I'm Pragmatik and I like to talk about video games. And the game I want to talk about today is The Little Mermaid. Possibly the most manly game in the world. Now, licensed games like this are usually here or there with the developers, but The Little Mermaid was developed by Capcom, giving it a little bit more of an edge.
The Little Mermaid for NES was developed and published by Capcom. With the success of the 1999 Disney hit film, it would only make sense to try and create a game adaptation. What separates this game from the other licensed games is that this one had a pretty renowned company behind it. Capcom had a lot under its belt at this time with classics like Mega Man and Ghosts 'n Goblins. A lot of licensed games were picked up by companies like LJN, who would sometimes pass off its development to smaller companies, resulting in a bit of a mess of a finished product.
Rather than just follow the story of the movie or even continuing past the movie's events, the game is more of an alternative telling. Ariel has already met Eric and just decides to deal with Ursula herself.
I'm rather fond of the idea of the game only centering on Ariel. You'll find her traversing world after world dealing with all kinds of baddies before taking on Ursula. She'll have her mermaid tail to see her through as she uses it to trap her enemies in bubbles. And that's pretty much it. Defeating enemies or opening chests can give Ariel these blue or red orbs that can increase the range of her attack or her power respectively. Having increased power will also allow her to move boulders and barrels. She'll need these upgrades to combat each boss at the end of each stage. With increased power, she can bubble enemies quickly and launch them at whatever boss she is facing. The best part is that these power-ups stack and carry over to the next stage, but one slip up and it's all over for your upgrades and you have to start back from having no powers. Having a developer like Capcom is probably what led to the controls feeling so good. Her movements are fluid and there's even a good feel to the small moments where she gets out of the water. She feels heavy, kind of what I imagine having a giant fishtail attached to your body would feel like.
One of the most pleasant aspects of this game is the nice little animations you get at the beginning of each stage. I feel this is a small treat because some of the bosses are frustrating to say the least.
It's worth mentioning that the soundtrack is pretty fantastic. The 8-bit opening of Under the Sea sounds crisp and it's just perfect and fitting for the game. And even the original pieces have that classic Capcom composer sound to it.
Now, despite this game being a fun-filled adventure, there are a few things that make it fall a little short.
I needed to explain how the upgrades work to really show you just how much this game shoots itself in the foot, or rather fin, I guess. While you can get power-ups from enemies, it's rare that it happens. The game wants you to get them from these chests, and sometimes that's a pretty simple task. You can use these shells that are just lying around to crack them open, but sometimes you need to move a rock or a barrel to get into them. Also not a hard task, but remember if you die you lose all your upgrades. This means that if you start the level over again, you start with nothing. So if no enemy is giving you any power orbs, you can't really open any chests that need to be opened with a bit of power, which also means you can't really get any stronger. So you basically have to progress the later levels at base power if you don't get lucky enough for an enemy to give you something. Also, Ariel has 5 heart slots and only starts with 3, and I think I found like 2 hearts during my entire playthrough and I hate that. Honestly, all of this pales in comparison to the main problem, the length of the game. I mean, the total playthrough time is about 45 minutes when you don't know what you're doing. The game is pretty great to play, but the fun can feel a little short when you can finish this all in under an hour.
The biggest payoff is probably fighting Ursula, as it's the most challenging part of the game. Facing Ursula in normal form only to have to fight her immediately in her big form can be quite the task, when the game is so frugal with giving you spare hearts.
But the game as a whole is pretty easy. Usually carrying one of these mini shells makes you almost invincible. It's a fairly simple and very short game, but fun nonetheless. So if you're looking for something short and sweet to blast through, The Little Mermaid might be for you. Hey guys, thanks for checking out the video. Did you play The Little Mermaid as a kid, or did it never catch your interest?
Let us know in the comments. Also, follow us on Twitter if you'd like to stay connected. And as always, keep it practical.